Welcome to Pop-O-Holics, a show about hot takes, hotter than hot, tasty pancake. Now on video. My name is Christian Katie. I'm the host of this train wreck of a show, and I'm joined as always by
Chris Conkling,
Brian Dupree.
Thank you all for being here, my beautiful hosts. You can see your faces. How gorgeous is this cast? This is a good-looking cast. Most podcasts you listen to, you see the video and you're like, ugh. And you see these handsome.
Oh my god!
Oh my god! That's what he looks like. He's got 6 eyes. Yes, we are now on YouTube. We are doing this intro and our news section. Brian brings us the latest news, and the rest you can subscribe on your favorite podcast player to listen to the rest of that. But we're bringing this first part of the show to you on YouTube, ad free for the time being. So we want you to appreciate that content. How y'all doing today?
Doing great. Excited to be here.
Yeah, same. I found out that my co-host did significantly more research than I had prior to this episode, so I had a little catching up to do today, but it was a good thing.
There you go.
Well, you made it happen, though. I'm proud of you.
I did. I got there.
I've done the least amount of research, as always. What is on the docket for today? Well, we're going to cover the news. That's going to be recorded on video. And then for the podcast listeners, we're going to be talking about what we've been consuming this past week. And then we're going to have a little bit of community feedback at the end of the show, mixing things up. And for our main topic episodes on our main podcast feed, which is not on video currently, we're having a Spielberg month, which is very exciting. So subscribe to the pod to listen to our feelings
Spielberg
on
summer.
Covering Jaws. We're covering some other stuff. I haven't even looked. I'm always just on whatever we're doing today. I have no idea what other Spielberg. He's done a lot of stuff though. That's going to be exciting. But let's start the way
it's technically our not to interrupt, Christian, but it's technically our Spielberg summer-ish. Because we're still in spring.
Yeah.
Technically, summer starts in June. But, to me, Spielberg works summer.
How about this? Yeah. Springing into summer with some Spielberg. How about that?
Boom. I like it.
Pretty fun. But let's start the way that we do on this show, which is with Brian's Wacky News Corner.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to our live video newscast here. So, speaking of live newscasts, the Oscars happened this year, and the producers decided to switch things up a little bit, given the current state of the world. So Steven Soderbergh, Stacey Sher, and Jesse Collins switched up the format a little bit. They kind of really streamlined things. There was no individual host, and the people who presented the awards kind of co-hosted throughout. And there was some scripted stuff that happened. They moved the music to the pre-show, and things flowed relatively smoothly. The big thing that they changed was putting Best Actor at the end of the night rather than Best Picture. There was a certain gamble that they thought that Chadwick Boseman was going to get a posthumous win here, and he ended up not winning. And the winner was Anthony Hopkins, who, to no fault of his own, was probably at home asleep because he had to travel if he was to accept this award. It was just completely ridiculous for an 82-year-old man. He's also an
elderly gentleman.
This is it, right? So I'm going to run through a few of the major wins here and then talk about what you guys thought of the ceremony and if you actually watched it at all. So we had some huge wins for Chloe Zhao. She won Best Picture and Best Director for Nomadland. And Frances McDormand won for excuse me, and Yoon Eugene won for Minari, and Anthony Hopkins, as we said, won for The Father, and Daniel Kaluuya won for Best Supporting Actor, which was one that was not a surprise for us, kind of an expected win there, as well.
He also won Best Acceptance Speech of the Night.
Oh, yes, definitely. With thanking his parents for having had sex. It was wonderful. His mother was there and reacted. And, I want to thank them as well, because it is absolutely a blessing to have him here. Emerald Fennell won Best Original Screenplay for Promising Young Woman. So what did you guys think of the awards ceremony? Did you watch this awards ceremony? I know I was kind of live texting you guys about it as it happened.
I watched probably about an hour of the ceremony. Brian was texting us at the beginning, and I kind of chimed in after that. But I really liked it, to be perfectly honest. Like, I dug the no host thing. I did miss how typically standard Oscar fairs, they will show clips from all the nominees, right? So everybody will get like a taste of these films that they probably have not seen, right? However, they forewent that this year and instead had the presenters kind of describe what the film are about or tell a story about the nominees themselves. And I prefer the former, you know, like I think it's a great way to kind of advertise these films.
Yeah.
I think you could have it both ways though. I think you can have it hostless and kind of shot this cinematic format, but you can also show the clip films. So that's how I would do it going forward, but you know, no one's listening to me. So what do you guys think about the new ceremony format?
I think quickly to that point, I think it's interesting that these movies, unlike most years, were kind of widely available in a way that a lot of years most Oscar movies aren't available. So I think that kind of changed things, but I do agree that it is nice to see, especially if you haven't seen the performance, to get a taste of what people are being nominated for. Christian, what did you think about this?
Yeah, I dipped in and out watching throughout the night because I was kind of busy. But I wanted to catch a little bit of it, and I thought, who hosted the ceremonies? Was there a main host?
So Regina King was kind of
Regina King.
She started it off.
Yeah, okay, and I thought she was.
But yeah, and they kind of passed it around throughout the show.
Yeah, I thought she was really good, but I'd heard some stuff about it not being like a consistent host, which I think does hurt it. I think having a theme and a mood and a vibe and someone to kind of helmet is really helpful. I liked the way it was shot. I think it was like the most interesting looking Oscars. I thought it was very visually appealing, but yeah, add some clips in. I think that's helpful. I think most of the movies, it's kind of sad that it had the lowest viewings because I know that there's opportunities with how they put it all together, but I really liked the way it looked. And I really loved the movies and everything they covered. And I thought all the nominees were well-deserved and a lot of the wins were well-deserved. There's a lot to be debated about a lot of the wins, but you know, one of my favorite, me being an audio person, Sound of Metal winning for best audio mix is so perfect because that movie's incredible. Everybody should watch that movie on headphones. So that's one of my like standout ones that I'm just really proud of. I think they did an excellent job. I'm glad that team got recognized for such an incredible job. But yeah, none of us have seen The Father, so we have no idea if that's. But
it's supposed to be an incredible performance.
It's supposed to be really good. So I don't know. It's hard with award shows. You can debate the minutia, but yeah, definitely standout is Daniel Kaluuya's speech. I mean, he like got up and gave. I forget how Cockney he is. He's got like the Adele thing, where like you know he's such a good actor and so committed. You just get like wrapped up in whatever role he's in. It's same with Adele. You know, Adele will sing a song. She'll be like, rolling in the deep. I don't want to get sued for that song. But just like belting and beautiful and really clean. And there's really no region to her voice. Then she's like, all right, that was a good song, love. You want to hear another fucking one? Let me put one on right for you now. And you're like, what the hell? And Daniel Kaluuya,
what just happened?
To a lesser degree, Daniel Kaluuya is the same. He gets up and you're like, oh yeah, that guy's from merry old England. But I thought his speech was really good. So that was some of the things I was able to catch. But man, it is hard I know a lot of people that like went back and watched clips and stuff. So it's not like it's not getting traction. I'm sure if you looked at these clips on YouTube and stuff, like they're getting traction. It's just like a 3-hour awards ceremony by a bunch of Hollywood elite. It's just, I don't know if it can exist
tough to sell
in 2021 and going further. It's a lot to ask of people. People are going to have a hard time listening to our podcast, which is like an hour and a half, which is like, we're constantly like, how do we cut this down? Because it's like, you know, it's such an attention, seeking economy we're in. So it's really, I don't know how you sell these award shows. Their ratings have just been, so I think it was well done.
They've been on a couple years.
It just may be a bygone era.
But I do have to say, one of the benefits to not being assistant host and not having all these like variety show numbers over the course of the night is that all the winners were allowed to give a speech as long as they wanted. They had to select one person within the group of their team, but they didn't get played off stage at all, which is excellent. You know, this is a big moment for these people. It's possibly a once in a lifetime moment.
Sorry to interrupt. Some of these people should have been played off. There's a part that I'm glad because some of the really good speeches were allowed to go. But like, the dude from Another Round was just listing he's like listing people. He's like, I want to thank the AD. I want to thank the assistant director. I want to thank the coffee man. It's like, I want to thank the cast and crew. And then like 5 key highlights that you think were pivotal to this. Like, there has to be rules and regulations, because just letting, like, if I won an award, I need a limit. Listen, this is a very egotistical thing, but like, I'm a musician. If I won a Grammy, that's a really, really great moment. Give me my minute, but then play me off, because I'm on the Grammy stage. I'm going to be like, I want to thank my mom when I was 5 years old. She demanded I was in choir. Okay. And let me tell you about my choir teacher, Mrs. Perry. Rest in peace. What a beautiful soul that was. Oh my God. I love Miss Perry. And I would go on a tangent about Miss Perry. Real person, by the way. Great influence and legitimately beautiful person. See, I'm rambling right now. And Chris, you need to interrupt because I interrupted you. I need limits, okay? These artists
and that was Christian. Get him off the stage. No, sorry. I think the benefits to that though outweigh the failings. You know, like we had better moments in this year's Oscars, and fewer of those moments, I think. But we'll see how they decide to proceed going forward.
Yeah, they made some gambles. I think there were some pros and some relatively big cons with how it played out. But I had a good time watching it personally. I can't really compare it because I am not a dedicated Oscars watcher every year. But yeah, they took chances. You can't. It's undeniable that that's the case. So moving on. Next piece of news. We have some news coming straight from the town of Bedrock. Coming to Fox, Elizabeth Banks is starring as Pebbles in a new Flintstones adult animated TV show. So Elizabeth Banks is starring and producing in this. The pilot script is being written by Lindsay Kearns, who actually wrote Jurassic World Camp Cretaceous, which I know, Chris, you watched on Netflix. I think it was early this year or last year.
Yeah.
These sorts of shows, I've kind of not watched these consistently for the last 5 or 10 years, but I did rewatch the live action Flintstones movie recently, as I think you did too, Chris. To different levels of enjoyment. But I'm probably going to check this out when it comes out, just because of what it is conceptually. I grew up watching the Flintstones cartoons on reruns and these live action movies, so this is something that's up my nostalgia alley. How do you guys feel about this news?
I'm interested. Like you, Brian, I grew up watching reruns of the Flintstones. The Flintstones themselves were kind of the precursor to shows like Family Guy and The Simpsons, and they were the first animated sitcom nuclear family, you know? And while they weren't as raunchy as those other shows I just listed, that's kind of the idea that they were going for. So I think Fox developing an adult animated show similar to The Simpsons or to Family Guy in the Flintstones universe, I think is a perfect fit for 2021. It makes the most sense. It's almost like the show's come full circle in that it is now kind of fully becoming what it was going to be, or was originally, you know? They have attempted to make sequels to the Flintstones multiple times over the course of the last 40 years. I know there was like a movie that came out when we were kids where Pebbles and Bam Bam were a little bit older. So I think they're doing something similar here. You know, we got, what did it say? Like a 20-something-year-old Pebbles. We'll probably see Bam Bam. She's like a career woman type of character. So I'm really interested. I'm definitely going to check out the first couple episodes. This also has the potential to be absolutely awful, but
it definitely does.
But off the bat, I'm intrigued. What about you, Christian?
Unless Bam Bam is voiced by Bam Margera, I'm out.
Oh.
Well, I don't think he's been cast at this point. So
I don't know if that's going to happen. I think he's had some problems as of late. So
listen, it's a Fox cartoon comedy. I don't know. I don't have any faith. I love the Flintstones growing up. I did. I especially loved when Barney and Fred would sneak out to have a little afternoon smoke, you know. Got to have a Winston. Got to have a Winston every once in a while while you're waiting for the dinosaur mailman to bring dinosaur bone mail or whatever the hell.
Anyway. I know you were a fan of Family Guy at some point, Christian.
I was, but I like
crapping on Fox animated sitcoms. It's like, come on.
But they're always like a level of adult, but they're always kind of like a safe adult. I don't know. It's just. Listen, I'm ready to be surprised.
Still network television.
Surprise me. But I don't think I'm going to be surprised.
really interested to see what the aesthetic of the show is. Are they
Probably gonna
go
look
with
a lot
like
like
traditional
style.
aesthetic?
think
like
about
the original
Flintstones, think about
or-
Family Guy, and I think it's gonna look like that. If I was to guess, if I was betting man, if I was to bet my life savings of Dogecoin, I'd put it on. It looks like Flintstones fucked a Family Guy.
I know this is a weird thing, but I think I'm most interested about seeing how they go about drawing the eyes of the characters. Because Family Guy has these like really circular eyes with a black pupil in the middle. If you go back and watch the Flintstones, Barney Rubble doesn't have any whites in his eyes. They're just straight up black dots.
He's
while Fred
fucking
does
wigging
have
out
whites in
on
his eyes.
some.
Jaws.
He's wigging out on some old pre age of modern humanity shrooms. There.
Right.
He's
I know
in
that's a really like
the ape
nerdy
monkey
animation
theory.
thing.
They're in the transformation. They're
Yeah.
stoned ape, stoned monkey. Brian, help me out here.
I think stoned ape theory is what you're thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Anyway.
That's an adult animated version of the Flintstones is coming to Fox, starring and produced by Elizabeth Banks.
It's not about them all transitioning through the stoned aped period.
It actually is about
it is
them
a transition
transitioning
show, yeah.
into the Bronze Age, from the Stone Age to the Bronze Age, and how like Fred's generation is coping with that, while Pebble's generation, I'm sure, is probably a little embracing it a little bit more. So
Interesting.
very similar to kind of like what's happening now.
And by all accounts, there is copious psychedelic drug use. So look forward to that.
Just look at Barney Rubble's eyes.
Yeah.
I don't know, Fred. You look like a giant magical dragon right now, Fred.
So next piece of news.
Highbrow humor here on the Pop-O-Holics.
Oh, we're always keeping it highbrow. Something that is very close to us. We just did a Godzilla month last month around Godzilla versus Kong, and the director of that movie is actually in talks to do the next MonsterVerse movie. It was unclear to me and to most people if this latest movie was going to be the last one, and I'm happy to see that with how well it's doing, given what's going on at the global box office, they seem to be confident that this series could continue. And I think we all enjoyed that movie on different levels, but Adam Wingard definitely did a good job, and we agreed that it's some of the greatest monster fights that we've seen, and the director obviously has a huge part to play in that. So it's being bantied around that this movie is called Son of Kong. I think this is just nonsense. I'm not certain that this is the case. I'd be down for it, don't get me wrong, but he also has multiple things lined up with Thundercats, and he's also talked about a Face Off sequel that I don't know when this movie would actually happen, if it were to happen, but I'm happy to hear that the MonsterVerse is continuing either way. How do you guys feel about this?
I think it's a good choice. I mean, by the books, Godzilla vs. Kong has made more money than King of the Monsters during a pandemic, which is
Wow.
a feat in and of itself. And the fact that Adam Wingard kind of led the production and directed this film to be so successful during a pandemic speaks volumes to, the type of creator that he is. So I think it's apropos that Legendary go, okay, you did a great job with this film. We're going to give you the sequel. What can you do? Can you do it again? Can you make it better? I don't know how I feel about it being simply a Kong movie potentially, but again, we're like in super early stages of production. Like you said, Brian, that might not even be the real title. But I'm interested. This MonsterVerse outside of the MCU is the most successful cinematic universe that we've gotten in the last 10 years. And a ton of people have tried to emulate what Marvel's doing. So I'm interested.
Yeah, that's a good point about the cinematic universe thing. So Legendary's clearly like handled this relatively well compared to like others. I'm going to skip to the last 30 minutes of this movie. Next time we review it, I would be like, nope, I'm not
What
watching
if they
it.
subvert expectations and the first 30 minutes
load.
are the giant monster battles and then the rest is the human stuff?
That's cool. They won't.
We're going to make you sit through all
Put
this
in
human
that.
stuff to get to the meat of the film. We know what you came
I
for.
agree. He Adam Wingard must have done an excellent job of communicating with the special effects team and organizing that to be really cool. But beyond that, and I think that's huge. That's a huge win. Beyond that, I don't care. I I don't care.
We know how you feel about
Fair
kaiju
enough.
flicks.
Well,
Johnny
we may be-
Godzilla definitely knows how you feel about kaiju
Johnny
flicks.
Godzilla knows. Who knows? We may be doing a King Kong Godzilla month part 3 when this comes out. We'll have to see how things play.
To the studio's credit, they know.
The Godzilla Guru would love that.
To the studio's
yes.
credit, fans seem to have loved it. It seems to be like am not mad that I watched it. I rewatched the last 30 minutes on my own accord for enjoyment. So there's something there, and clearly he's tapped into just making the big monsters fight in a fun way. So I don't think it's a bad move. I agree with Legendary. It just, for me, doesn't make me excited about the next flick.
Yeah,
understandable. And this is very early talks. Nothing's locked in here yet, but we'll definitely keep you guys in the loop about that. Next piece of news, Christian, something you are undeniably going to be more excited for than the last piece of news. Bo Burnham, after a relatively long break from stand-up comedy, he wrote and directed a movie with 8th Grade that I really enjoyed. I think it's great. He was in Promising Young Woman and did an incredible job in that last year. And now he's coming back to stand-up comedy with his latest special called Inside. The previous one that he did was called Make Happy. And Christian, you actually showed this to me. It was like the second to last time I came up to visit you, I think. And I had never seen any Bo Burnham specials. And after that saw 8th Grade, saw him in Promising Young Woman. I'm definitely a fan now. And he seems to really kind of subvert the medium or use the medium in different ways than other people. And I'm really excited to see what he does with this quarantine version of his style of stand-up. What do you guys think about this?
I am so pumped. I'm so jazzed for this. Bo Burnham is one of my favorite creators. And it's interesting. He's very of our generation, right? He was built on YouTube, and he was making silly songs, and I really relate to that because when I was younger, and I'm an aspiring singer-songwriter, Midnight Satire, shameless plug, and I don't write comedy music. I write music that I try to be authentic and deliver an emotional connection to people. And I think Bo Burnham does the same thing, but with comedy. And so I was always a big fan of his. And he always appealed to the outcast. All the weird kids in my class loved him. He's very funny. I remember one of his old songs was about being at a party, and he doesn't drink yet because he's like 15. He's acknowledging that he's like young.
Party, senior year.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like, does anybody sell? Is there soda here? Is there Coke? Does anybody have Coke? Not that kind, Very funny, very witty. And he just has blossomed into not only a great stand-up comedian who subverts the format, and I've always been a big fan of stand-up, and subverts that format and takes it to its crazy extreme of being an insane monologue by somebody and really just keeps surprising you throughout. But then he goes and directs a great movie that's worthy of critical acclaim, and his role as a supporting actor, as particularly someone who's not extremely likable at the end of the day, and then to see him kind of come back to his roots, doing a solo kind of YouTube kind of thing. I'm very excited to see. I'm often worried with creators that I love that is this their miss? So, he's not working with a lot, so it's going to be a huge test. But I'm excited, and I'm ready to.
It's just him.
I'm ready to love it. Chris, what are your thoughts on it?
I, like you, have been a huge fan of Bo Burnham since his YouTube days. I was in college when he started on YouTube. That explains the 2-year gap between us.
Chris was in the middle of the desert, and some people approached him about Bo Burnham.
Have you heard about Bo Burnham? He'll change your life. I am so incredibly excited for this stand-up special. I had the chance to see Bo Burnham live in college, and it was an amazing experience. I know you guys disagree when I say this, but I think of Bo Burnham as a modern day Andy Kaufman. I think he's so dedicated to the performance and the character that he's portraying on stage. And if you've ever heard him talk about those characters and his different stand-up specials, he kind of is the antithesis of the people that he's portraying during the act. He's a very introverted type of person, despite being so extroverted during all these performances. So I agree with Christian. I think he's one of the most talented creators of our generation. And I absolutely cannot wait to see what he does with this stand-up special. I'm so excited.
I somewhat disagree with comparing him to Andy Kaufman specifically.
I know you
There's
do.
Andy Kaufman-esque things, but his voice throughout, I think, is authentic to him as a creator. And I think that's the difference between him and Andy Kaufman. Andy Kaufman was particularly a character, but Burnham goes in and out of different characters, and so did Andy Kaufman. But it feels like he always lands back on a genuine voice, where it doesn't feel like, for me, and what little I know about Andy Kaufman, which isn't a ton, saw the Jim Carrey movie, is that not only is his soul possessing Jim Carrey at this very moment, but is that Andy Kaufman didn't actually ever land back on an Andy Kaufman person, right? And Bo Burnham has a landing pad, and we saw that in his last special. There's this really big, like, emotional breakdown of, like, the artist, the creator, and the audience that feels like authentic and genuine in a way that I don't think Andy Kaufman ever was tapping into. Not to compare them as good and bad. Like, I'm not trying to say Bo Burnham's better or anything like that. Just that there is, I think, a Bo Burnham voice that is authentic to himself as an artist.
Agreed.
Yeah, so apparently this is almost done, and I imagine we'll be out sometime this year. So we'll keep you guys in the loop for that. Bo Burnham's Inside. The last piece of news proper, which is a piece of news that no one would ever consider cutting from this section.
Why would they
ever
do
that? It would just
that?
be heinous to think so. The House of the Dragons has begun production. So this kind of blew my mind when I realized where this source material came from. So George R.R. Martin has written a prequel called Fire and Blood, which follows the story of House Targaryen. And this is set 300 years prior.
Excuse me, it's House Targaryen. Please,
Targaryen.
Brian. We want to be authentic to the listener.
I'm the one who hasn't watched the show, if it wasn't obvious. But yeah, so it blew my mind that he had written a prequel book, but hasn't finished the sequel or the storyline proper. I'm sure that's got to be frustrating to fans. But in terms of potentially reading something before it comes out, I'm kind of interested in maybe checking this out, considering there's a new show coming off of it. How do you guys feel about coming back to this universe and finding out more about this family?
So I feel as though Christian and I felt similarly about season 8 of Game of Thrones. As soon as the creators got off book, there was a noticeable decline in the quality of the show. But that being said, I'm still excited to go back to Westeros. You cannot deny that the first 7 seasons, maybe the first 6 seasons, are some of the best television that's ever been made. So despite how the show ended in a year where some other franchises had much stronger finales and wrapped things up much better, Avengers Endgame, I'm excited. And I'm also a big fan of Matt Smith. He's going to be one of the main characters in this show. Matt Smith, for those that don't know, is the 11th Doctor from Doctor Who. We had a whole Doctor Who month, which we forced Christian to watch a bunch of Doctor Who episodes. You can go back and listen to that. But I'm genuinely excited. I think the Targaryens are some of the most interesting characters in this franchise solely because they are kind of so shrouded in mystery during the main series. During the main series, we're kind of in a time after the Targaryens. So this should be fun. Christian, how do you feel about this?
To be clear, just as the record will show for the Pop-O-Holics official statement, the best series of television is The Wire. It's perfect.
I said one of the best, not the best. I
still think that's bold talk. Yeah, Game of Thrones, when it was good, was really good. This is a big test for HBO to see if they can actually expand out. We were talking about Legendary being the only thing to expand out a cinematic universe in any successful way. I think this is the same kind of bet, right? But George R.R. Martin clearly is a great writer, and it's judged off stuff that's actually already been written, so it's not the later season 7 problems, 6 and 7. Exactly. The Game of Thrones had, so it has potential to be really good, and I think they're going to put a lot of money behind it. I won't put anything past a good budget and a good writer. Those are both good combos to have. So I'm, as with a lot of stuff, I sound like a broken record. I'm excited, but a little bit antsy because this is their first delving into it, right? As I was with the Disney Plus, Star Wars Extended, and Marvel Extended stuff. You have to prove yourself before I'm like immediately like, oh, this is just gonna be good.
Yeah,
it's really hard to make good content. I want to make that very clear. It's not that any of the talent behind it's going to be bad. It's just the more you box yourself in, the harder it becomes, right? You're stuck in this lore. You're stuck in whatever you're constrained to. So it makes it's hard to make good TV, and then it's hard to make good TV that makes sense with the other good stuff that has already been made. So I wish them the best of luck. I hope it's great.
Yeah, that 300-year buffer, as well as the fact that it's coming from source material from R.R. Martin himself, I think it has some good legs to stand on potentially. So we'll definitely keep you in the loop on that. That should be coming out next year at some point.
The world is really...
Brian's going to have to watch all Game of Thrones before he even touches.
Well, hopefully not. Hopefully the show stands
happen,
apart and doesn't need
this is it. I'm looking forward to that.
I really think the world has just been really hungry, just really craving more incest content. It's really what I've been perceiving.
Oh, is that what's driving this? Okay. Wow.
We'll see how I'm like waiting for like as the intro credits roll. I'm like, what's the launch time to incest?
You got T-minus 5 minutes.
Yeah, like how long until someone gets decapitated? How long until like there's full blown frontal male and female nudity, and how long until there's incest? Because and from what I know about the Targaryens.
We're gonna get it all in episode 1.
Oh, we are 5 minutes into episode 1, and we're gonna be like, boxes checked. Cool, we're back into Game of Thrones. That's what I signed up for. This is the Max in HBO Max.
Well, I'm not sure if you're selling me on the show the way you're describing it here, but we'll see how that is.
All things, by the way, in the original first episode of Game of Thrones, there is incest and full frontal within, I think, about 10 minutes.
And this I have seen.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's House of the Dragons. That's in production now and should be coming out sometime next year.
House of the
a bunch of stuff.
Sibling screwing dragons. Let's move on.
Apparently. There is a bunch of stuff coming out this week, so I am going to kind of really quickly run through it. A couple of movies that are coming to theaters this Friday. The new Guy Ritchie movie that he co-wrote with Nicholas Boucreef, Ivan Atkinson, and Marn Davies, which stars Jason Statham, and has a plot summary of mysterious and wild-eyed, a new security guard for a cash truck surprises his coworkers when he unleashes precision skills during a heist. So it's a heist movie. His character may literally be named H, and I think that's all you need to know about this movie to know what you're getting into with a Guy Ritchie, Jason Statham, action-packed insanity. That'll be out this Friday, and if you're into that kind of movie, I'm sure it'll give you what you're looking for. The next one is called Here Today, also out this Friday. This is directed and produced by Billy Crystal and written by himself and Alan Zwiebel. It stars him and Tiffany Haddish as a veteran comedy writer who forms an unlikely friendship with a street singer. This movie looks kind of generic and kind of like old man learning to understand the younger generation type of thing. But it's Billy Crystal. I'm sure there's got to be stuff to like here. Tiffany Haddish as well. They've got charisma to spare between the two of them, and may have some good comedy between the two of them. So that's Here Today. That'll be out this Friday. Something that's coming to Netflix this Friday. A movie that originally premiered at Sundance in 2018. Someone bought the rights to it but never distributed it. Netflix finally picked it up, so it seems relatively old at this point, but this follows a talented teen implicated in a robbery turned murder who fights for his innocence and integrity against a criminal justice system that's already judged him. This is directed by Anthony Mandler and written by Rada Blank, Cole Wiley, and Janice Schaefer. It's based on the novel of the same name by Walter Dean Myers and stars Kelvin Harrison Jr., Jennifer L., Tim Blake Nelson, Nasir Naz Jones, Rakim ASAP Rocky Mayers, Paul Ben Victor, John David Washington, Jennifer Hudson, and Jeffrey Wright. So there's a bunch of well-known people in this movie, a lot of them in relatively smaller roles, it looks like. But this movie is called Monster, and it'll be on Netflix this Friday. Next piece of news that may be more interesting to definitely you, Chris. The great Dave Filoni is back with Star Wars The Bad Batch on Disney+. This is produced by Lucasfilm Animation with Jennifer Corbett as head writer and Brad Rao as supervising director. And it follows a group of genetically mutant clones who are a
Yes.
group. I don't know too much about the concept behind this show, but it is a spin-off from the Clone Wars animated series that Dave Filoni is known for. It stars D. Bradley Baker, Ming-Na Wen, Steven Stanton, and Andrew Kashino.
I love that it stars D. Bradley Baker as the entire Bad Batch.
Every
'Cause
single
he's the voice of all the
clone
clones in Clone Wars and now this show. So what a gig. I wonder how much they pay that man. He deserves a lot.
Not enough.
Probably not enough.
Not enough.
Probably not enough, yeah.
So this is kind of a weird release. They're releasing the first episode on Friday and then the second one on Sunday, and then it'll be weekly from there, if I understand it correctly. So that's the Bad Batch that'll be out this Friday and Sunday. Jupiter's Legacy is something that's also coming to Netflix this Friday. This is based on the comic by Mark Miller and Frank Quitely and follows the superpowered children of superheroes from the 1930s and how they struggle to live up to the legendary feats of their parents. If this sounds familiar, there's another show called Invincible that's out right now. So this feels very zeitgeisty, even though both these properties have been around for much longer than the animated ones themselves. This stars Josh Duhamel. I don't know how to pronounce his name. I apologize.
Josh Duhamel.
This stars Josh Duhamel, Elena Kampouris, and Leslie Bibb, and is written by Stephen S. DeKnight. I don't know. I kind of fell off on Invincible. I know Chris and I had talked about this recently. I'm not super into this sort of story right now, but I will say, because it's on Netflix, I'll probably check out an episode or two. And I've heard great things about Mark Miller's original comic, so I may check that out as well. But yeah, that's Jupiter's Legacy. That's coming to Netflix this Friday. Last piece of news, something that I probably won't play, but I'm still pretty excited for. Resident Evil Village is coming out to all the services: Windows, PS4 and 5, Xbox One, Series X and S, and the Stadia on this Friday. And this is developed and published by Capcom and is a narrative sequel to Resident Evil 7 Biohazard. Some of the concept art and stuff released for this has set the internet aflame in more ways than one, with one of the villains of this. But this game looks absolutely insane. It's got werewolves, it's got mermen, it's got giant, potentially sexy killer undead ladies, depending on your take on the whole thing.
Witches.
It's going to be Resident Evil. It's going to be terrifying, and it looks awesome. Resident Evil 4 is one of the few games in the series that I ever played, and I never finished it, but it's still one of my favorite games that I've ever played and has really stuck
Recently
with me.
announced coming as a remake to Oculus Quest 2.
Really?
Yes,
Very cool.
as a first-person horror game. But
that is amazing.
Yes, I have a Quest 1. I don't want to give Facebook any more money, but damn it.
Might happen.
Back to Villages. I played the little teaser game. It's basically a playable trailer. There's really not a whole lot of gameplay in it, but the game's gorgeous. I played on my PS5. It's going to look incredible. I got to say, though, that this is the first thing, not game, okay, first piece of art that I played 7 in VR with the PSVR. This game is just like 7 is just terrifying. It's just like I didn't finish it, and you know me. I finish a lot of games. I commit, and 7 was too scary. It was too scary. I'm a man enough to admit it.
That's impressive.
It gave me too much anxiety to play, and it's because I had to finish it in VR because it's a lot better. And it's more scary. And I might be able to do Villages not in VR as a 2D, but it's mostly just like, what the witch is. It's just, they've really mastered and tapped into dread and anxiety and fear. And there's the pops, because they got the pops, the jump scares. But really, it's just about the terrible feeling in your chest playing the game. And it's kind of a miserable experience. And it's kind of quite astounding that they've pulled this off so well. And so I have no interest in playing it. It's just too scary. I'm gonna say.
I can imagine though that sense of dread is amplified in VR.
You're in it.
That's actually one of the questions I was going to ask you when you said that, which is, do you think you'd be more comfortable playing this as a standard console game? From the trailers, it looks scary, and loyal listeners will know I have consumed horror. but I am by no means the horror buff here on the Pop-O-Holics. That I leave that job to Brian. Brian goes out there, he experiences all the fear, and then he goes, Chris, I think you can handle this. And then
scout.
I watch.
Your fear scout. This is me playing the
He's my fear
demo,
scout, yeah.
which, spoiler alert for the demo, it doesn't have any engagements. It's just the mood. And I picked up my
Cannot get married.
I picked up my
in this
controller.
version yet.
I picked up my controller, and I just
Oh, Brian.
I just went and I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna demo it because I play all the games. I'm the game guy. I play all the games. And then I went,
I'm the gamer boy. I remember this.
I can't do it. And I played the demo, and luckily I was like, oh good, it's out. Like as soon as it ended, I was like, oh thank God. I'm like, I'm out. I was like, I don't.
Felt like you survived it.
I would play Resident Evil 4 in VR because it's more of an action adventure game with scary monsters. I don't like the overwhelming sense of dread and fear that it gives me.
The only Resident Evil game that I've played to the finish is Resident Evil 5. And I actually played that game co-op
It's like
throughout the whole thing.
It's literally like the worst one.
I know, sadly.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
that and 6. I think 6 might be worse. Yeah, they leaned really into the action part, and
They did.
They lost
Maybe
a lot
that's
of
why
character.
That was the only one I could get through.
A lot of
Co-op
mood.
sounds fun though.
Yeah, Gears of
It
War.
It is fun.
Yeah, that seems like it'd be
But-
probably the best way to play it.
I think there's an
in
online
terms of-
version in this one as well, the latest one.
I'm sure. In terms of some of these other releases coming out this week, I'm super excited about the Bad Batch, as Brian said. This is going to be really interesting because it takes place in a time period in the Star Wars timeline that we rarely get to visit, which is immediately after the Empire is formed. The Clone Wars are over, and our leads are going to be clones. So I cannot wait to see from a clone perspective what it's like having their brothers transition out of the Republic army and either be killed off to make way for recruits for the Empire army. Because once we get to A New Hope, they're no longer clones; they're solely recruits. So I'm really interested to see what Dave Filoni does during this time period. And I think because the Bad Batch are already outcasts in the clone army, they're the perfect characters to follow. So super excited about that. Jupiter's Legacy. I tweeted out a pretty spicy comment when I first saw this trailer.
Chris,
You know me, loyal
unusually
listeners.
spicy.
I'm the
was.
action boy here on Pop-O-Holics. I love superheroes, but I watched that trailer, and my immediate thought was, so this is what superhero fatigue looks like. And I don't know if it's because
This is the first time you're coming to that the Suicide Squad. You weren't in the middle of going like, well, I think we've made a huge mistake.
No.
Oh man.
When it comes to the Marvel and DC properties, despite there being horrible films on the DC side, I've never once thought to myself, I'm exhausted of this genre.
I think Spider-Man 3 gave me severe fatigue.
At the peak of the bubble, Christian, you were feeling superhero fatigue already.
I've felt
a lot
this
of people say
fatigue since it
superhero
started.
fatigue doesn't exist, and Brian mentioned earlier when he was talking about this that there's a similar show that's currently out. It's animated, it's not live action, but Invincible is very similar in themes. Now, I haven't read the original Jupiter's Legacy comic, so I don't know a whole lot about the story. But I just looked at that trailer and was like, no. I'm done. I'm not going to watch that. I could probably continuously watch Marvel movies for the next 30 years, and I'm sure that I will be doing that. But I just
Sounds right.
I don't want to invest any time in this show.
What
I'm
about
sorry,
when
loyal
Chris? What
listeners.
about when you have a child, and the child is like, I don't like super. I want to go throw the football. Like I don't like any of the superhero stuff.
How dare you?
He already has a child, and he's
Christian,
visible
I don't know if
on-
you I don't know if you know this, but child rearing is about brainwashing them from an early age. So if
Uh-huh.
I'm
Start the
whispering,
conditioning young.
Yeah.
if I'm whispering things like Batman and Spider-Man
Mhm.
while they're in the womb still, or if I'm watching superhero movies while they're in the womb, they're listening to those things. And hopefully by the time they're like 3, they've been brainwashed to love
Can I tell you?
superhero content. I'm joking. I by no means advocate brainwashing children.
To this day, my father, he'll be like, what did you do today? And I'll be like, yeah, I took it easy. I wasn't working on creative stuff. I got a new video game I'm very excited about. I'm playing it. And my dad will go like, so you still do that? And it's like,
oh no.
I'll be like, yeah, it's like one of my hobbies. And he's very sweet. He's not like too judgmental, but he like,
yeah, of course.
I don't get it.
The entire time growing
it.
up, my dad would be like, that's a waste of time. That is completely not worth you spending an effort on. I'm like, this is one of my favorite hobbies, and I don't give a shit what you think. And listen, I don't want to set you up for failure, Chris, but your kid might be into sports.
Look, I'm going to support my child regardless of what their hobbies are. But one of my deepest fears is my child walking into my office and just going, nerd, and then walking out. That would be horrible.
I'm gonna go.
So if I can prevent that, I'm gonna try to. But if they prefer sports, then I'm going to bolster that love.
I'm gonna go drop some hoops with Blake.
I'll be like, okay, son, have fun playing the sports ball.
I really hope your kid's into sports.
If you even try to make that happen, I swear to God.
Yeah, all the Christmas presents from Uncle Christian, they're just all gonna be. It's like, oh, a tennis racket.
I actually played tennis in high school, so that would be okay.
Okay, yes, you're okay with the tennis. Okay, you're like, I draw the line, but it has to be Mario. To be Mario tennis.
If Mario plays
within the Mario sports umbrella.
No son of mine's playing a sports
Tennis,
game with
golf.
outside of the Mushroom Kingdom.
Hey, that's gonna be a good bridge to cross when the time comes. That's what you guys will relate with one another.
Yeah, Mario Bridge now on Switch.
Son, you like tennis. What if I told you that we could play tennis without having to go outside? Mario tennis.
That's why you're so white, Dad.
I'm sold.
All right, Brian, take us out.
Yeah, well, that's it for the news this week, guys. Thank you so much for being here with us.
And that's going to do it for our YouTube segment. If you want to listen to what we've been consuming personally and what we like to dig into, our thoughts and feelings, subscribe. We got a link in the show notes so you can go to your favorite podcast player of choice. You can find us on Twitter, and our respective handles are, I'm at Midnight Satire.
At Chris Conkling.
And I'm at True Pop-O-Holic.
Because he's the most genuine of all of us. So for our YouTube listeners, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we'll see you guys next week or in the podcast feed.